Reed Davis, welcome to the Story Engine podcast. It is so exciting to have you on today.
Kyle, thanks so much for having me here. Look forward to a nice little show.
So Reed, I want to introduce you the same way I introduce all the guests. Can you tell me about a moment in your life that has defined who you are and how you show up in the world today?
I think so. I mean, I have to go back a few years to a time, and of course, people I think know I'm in functional medicine, functional lab training, and natural protocols. I'm a teacher, and but it's all based on the experience from working in a clinic for 10 years. I ran thousands of labs on thousands of people, and very early on, I knew I was on the right track, Kyle, when a lady was in the office, and she was a chiropractic patient, and I was usually give her a little massage on her neck before the doctor adjusted her. I'm walking her back to a treatment room, and she was just really looking down in the mouth, and I said, "What's going on?" By her name. She said, "I'm just so upset with, what's going on. I'm 40 pounds overweight, and I just can't lose the weight. And it's because of this medication I've been on for 2 years." And she explained that she gets the hives if she doesn't take this medication. And she gets the hives because of this medication. And she had just been to her doctor and explained to him that she was really upset, about the weight. And all he told her, she said, was, "You have your choice. You can be fat or you can have the hives." And she said that made her very depressed. And when she told him that, he says, "Well, I can write your prescription for antidepressants if you want." And of course, in our world, that doesn't fly. And so I looked at her and I said, "Well, what?" Called her by her name. I said, "Well, why haven't you figured out why you get the hives?" And man, her head just about snapped off her neck. Like, what? And I go, it seems like if you just figure out why you get the hives, you have to worry about the medication, getting fat, depression, more drugs. And she said, "Well, yeah, well, how do I do that?" So I gave, next, moving forward quickly, hopefully, she ran a test or two, found out she was sensitive to soy, corn, dairy, eggs, and other grains, like mostly wheat. So that's the 5 big ones. And she had sensitivities to all of them. She got off those things. And this is by her words. In 9 days, she was telling her doctor, "I'm not taking this medication anymore." She's just going to avoid these things because she already felt better. She'd been eating some of those things every day for her whole life. And so within another couple weeks, she was losing weight. And she was doing 2 things, she told me, that she hadn't done in 2 years, that I didn't even know about yet. She goes, "Reed, I just want you to know I'm so incredibly happy. I've been doing 2 things for the last few days that I haven't done in 2 years. One is taking a hot shower." She hadn't taken a hot shower in 2 years. Wow. Because even on the meds, she got the hives. And she hadn't worked out to the point of perspiration in 2 years because even on the meds, if she perspired, she got the hives. And she just said she was so elated and happy. And that's a defining moment when I said, "I think I'm onto something here with this lab testing for underlying causes, conditions, and then all natural protocols. There's no drugs involved." So I would say that's one. I have a lot of stories like that, but I remember that one real clear.
Yeah. No, well, that really sets the stage for the real movement you've created, because beyond this, because I had the honor of attending this event of your association and certification and community a few months back, but where this is something, and this is kind of not necessarily new news. I think a lot of people who've been listening to the show have heard similar stories of testing, but what's really cool here is this was a moment of discovery where you not only started working with your own patients and your own clients in this manner, but you put together a certification called Functional Diagnostic Nutritionist, which has hundreds of people that you've certified now that are all addressing these problems, and it's changing the way a lot of us look at health and how we manage it. And so it's incredible to see how it started with one conversation and is now causing this huge impact around the world.
Well, thanks for that. And yeah, we're honored to have you as a guest speaker and vendor at our conference. It was one of the best functional medicine type conferences I've been to, and I'm really proud of that. That was our second one. We're going to do it every year now, and it is mostly the FDN community, in other words, graduates, but a lot of non-grad, just other people, and of course our affiliate, vendor type partners are there because we want to teach and have fun and really just build on the community, which has been an amazing benefit. I didn't know there was going to be a community when I first started teaching.
Yeah.
But that came out of it just, having a really good course that people loved, and then they like hanging out with each other, and contributing. And most of my best ideas for improving the course it'll be 12 years this summer. My best ideas to improve the course that come from the people who took it. So it's really a sort of group sourced and an amazing opportunity to learn and do some good in the world.
So you've mentioned a course, and there is a community around this, but I've seen certifications. I've seen certifications in the health and wellness world. I've seen certifications in the marketing world, in the coaching world. There's certifications like this everywhere. But it's a really interesting thing to, at least there's a gap that I really want to explore with you. You put together this body of knowledge, and then all of a sudden you've come to a point where you decide this is comprehensive enough that you want to be able to certify other people and actually have people learn it and stand behind this body of teaching that you've created. What does it look like how does this certification evolve and come into place? How does that even be created?
Yeah, good question. Well, after 10 years and running thousands of labs on thousands of people and creating a system of investigation, in other words, I learned which small handful of labs you probably want to run on everybody. Remember, I'm not a physician, so I don't want to diagnose and treat a specific condition. I just want to figure out what are the healing opportunities generally in hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, a couple of others. What are the healing opportunities? And then apply the general principles of health building. In other words, how do you fix it all at one time? How do you have an effect on every cell, tissue, organ, system? That's true health coaching. And so I developed that system, and then everybody pretty much was telling me you should be teaching other practitioners. I love to lecture, so I was out lecturing in the community, anywhere from libraries to grocery stores and some bigger venues. But it was mostly just to get my own clients. I had a huge practice. People said, Reed, you can only help so many people. You've got to teach others how to do this. And then that was from my customers. And then the labs and the other companies that I do business with were saying, who the hell are you? Like, no one has this much business. And I said, I don't know. I'm just me. I just, I was doing it because I didn't know you can't do it. One of those things. And so just out lecturing 2-3 times a month, I just enjoyed it. And so, came upon me that I should create a course. So my advice to anyone thinking that, if you've actually got a good system, this is not, again, something I just learned at school and repackaged and teaching like that. This is something practical that I did every day for 10 years or almost. And so I just codified everything and put together about 200 slides. And I invited some people to come and I think I charged about $800 for a 2-day workshop. And, I sweated those slides. And now when I look back, it's 12 years ago, they sucked, but it was the best thing at the time. And, I just stood there flipping through slides and cracking a few jokes and being myself and just let the chips fall where they may. And there was only 19 people there. Well, now we've trained, this is 12 years later, we've trained 3,000 people in 50 countries because I listened to the people who took it. What else they said, well, what about this? And how did you do that? And how did you do this? So I gave the basic content, the labs and the protocols, the philosophy. They call it a didactic form of training. You're really telling them how to do something, not just the theory behind it. And I had all that face-to-face time with customers, like that lady I was telling you about, to reflect upon every step of the way, every case and things like that. So you just have to put what you know together, put it in some slides, come up with a somewhat entertaining way of presenting it. So you're not just reading slides. Like, I don't use scripts, which I notice a lot of these lecture or certification programs, they're reading a script and it puts you to sleep. I can't even get through it. Well, I just have bullet points, and I've sweated over those a lot, but I know my points and I just make it more fun than that. So people just loved it, and they referred people. First class was 19, the next class was 40. Then I did a class of 60 after that. Well, then I went online, started doing it online so I could reach people from all over the place. And again, that was by virtue of the fact that one of my trainees or graduates said, hey, I'm an IT guy. I know the internet. Let me help you put this online because you're not doing good enough. So that's what I've done. I'll say at least that much. To get started, put your stuff together, have a weekend workshop, and you're running your flag up the flagpole and seeing who salutes. And also, I would also say get someone to help you with maybe breaking you into a certain group. Someone that will help promote you. I had that going for me. Yeah, my first 20 or 80 customers really were from one group that I was affiliated with.
There's a lot of magic in here that I'm hearing, that no matter what space you're in, if you're in marketing, if you're in coaching, services, health, no matter what, this is really encouraging news. And there's a couple of core principles that I've heard over and over again with a lot of people. First of all, I think it's so encouraging that this isn't something, I think a lot of people feel like for a certification, you have to go and study at a university and get like a PhD or something and spend a lot of time. But this was practical, on the ground learning. And this is what you were learning with the next key point, face to face with customers. You were working with people, you were getting results, and you were getting feedback from them. And so just getting in front of the right people, the people who you want to serve, and actually listening to them, that's where the magic happens. And I think that by tuning into what they were doing, or what they were saying, is they guided you to this, which once you find customers that can do that, or that do that for you, and you start to listen, that's really where a lot of growth and magic happens. And I've heard it over and over again. Another cool thing that I heard you say is that you were speaking and you were presenting, and there's this theme with a coach. Actually, you may know him as well. I've been working with a guy named Mark England, a really brilliant presentation coach and speaking coach, and he was just telling me the other day, like, getting on stage and presenting, a lot of people think you have to become an expert to do that, and I think actually doing that makes you become an expert. It's kind of this, by getting on the stage, you said it yourself, like the slides weren't the best at first, but you learned, you got up there, and you took the risks. And I think there's far too many people in the world these days who are afraid or feel like they need to have everything perfect. And maybe that they think like, I need to have this perfect script. But again, from you having this boots on the ground learning, you were able to just go from bullet points and talk. And this is a lot of my mentors that have taught me my speaking and presentation skills with this deep expertise, like Pete Vargas from Advance Your Reach as well. He has so much expertise. Like, he needs a script, not to keep him from just like dumping too much knowledge, not to like make sure that he doesn't have, there's like, he's never going to not have enough to say. And I think bringing that true expertise forward, again, by just being experienced with your clients, is really, really cool.
it's really important that you don't go over your own head too. So the way that I teach my course actually is the way that I learned how to do what I do. I started off with those early labs, like the first lab, checking the hormones. Before I ran all the tests that I ended up running and what I can run now, I just ran a lot of hormone tests. I had a very sort of small demographic. It was all women who were concerned about bone density. Because I had my own bone density testing or scanning company. That was another thing I did while I was managing the wellness center, was I had an outside service. I would go out and do this bone density test. So I got really in touch with the women who were concerned about bone density. Now, in 1999 and 2000, 2001, most women were on hormone replacement therapy, the dangerous drug kind. And then some studies came out that that's really bad for you, for your heart, and might be good for your bones, but you might get cancer or heart disease or something. So so they all got off. It's like, what do we do? So I said natural, stress reduction, hormone balancing, and things. So I did have a group to work with, and it grew from there and grew from there. So I learned how to do that testing really well. Then I learned how to do, well, what else? Because you can't just balance, here, you're going to balance your hormones. You have to have good digestion. You have to have good detoxification. You have to have a good immune system. So I learned over the years that, like by running thousands of labs, just a system, I was able to make my own observations. But going back to create a system, so you probably, or if you're listening and you've been working somewhere, you've been working on it, and you think you have something to teach, just don't teach what you know now. Teach, the steps and how you got to know all of this stuff, something you're an expert in. The other thing I'll say about speaking is, I was not a shy guy, but I wasn't a public speaker when I first started at the wellness center. And I was a pretty good salesman and organizer, manager. And I started taking courses in nutrition and personal training and things as I was working at this clinic. But we decided after I have my own coach from way back, long before Pete Vargas, who's great, and some of these other guys. It was a chiropractic consulting firm run by David Singer. And he encouraged us, having a wellness center, to do lectures. So my job as the manager of the clinic was to set up the lecture. I just told everybody, hey, next Tuesday night at 7:00, we're going to have some refreshments. We're going to do a new patient workshop, orientation, and you're going to bring your spouse with you. This is a way to increase your business, is get your clients' spouses to also be a client. So I had about 22 people showing up, and we had back then it was just a flip chart to go through. There wasn't any PowerPoints or any of that stuff. I mean, even just the old-fashioned slides where you press a button and there's a fan and a light blowing and this noise. We did all that stuff, but I was just going to do a flip, or the chiropractor was going to do a flip chart. So I had everybody in the room, like our patients and their spouses, and refreshments, and took her in. And I said, okay, they're ready for you. Went back in her office. She goes, I'm not giving that lecture. She goes, you're giving that lecture. That's how I started lecturing. Was like, 10 minutes before the lecture, you're giving it. So, and I didn't think I was ready at all. I just went and sort of blundered through it and thought I got a rush. I thought that was cool. So went from flipping a slide, a chart that we'd purchased on new patient management, to the slides. And then I started creating my own, now it's 20 years later, it's a different story. But man, start with just doing it. And you only need 10 or 15 people at the most to get going. Now I lecture to maybe 300 or 400, but it doesn't matter.
Plus, I've seen people to this day, like, we don't need anything fancier. You can run a $10,000 workshop with a flip chart and nothing else. Maybe some coffee in the back. And just depending if you've got good content, you've got good expertise to share. And something that stood out to me that I work with a lot of people that really does create this scale and create the ability to do this is creating a process. really getting clear on the steps of what you do and being able to explain those steps in a way that somebody else can pick it up again. And this is really powerful for if you're training somebody else in how to do this, but it's also really, really important when explaining to your clients what's going to happen, what you're going to go through, what you're going to experience, and hopefully the results that you're going to get as a part of this. If people can see the road ahead of them and know where they're going, they're going to trust you a lot more. But yeah, this is the key to being able to scale it up, or delegate something if you're in your business. There's so much power in really understanding and being able to just write out the process for doing something. What was your process for discovering this, or how did you start to codify what you were doing?
Well, as far as what FDN is, FDN and our duress protocols, I would say that the number one driving force is, and again, this is a bit of a story, but you got to be able to tell your story. If you don't have your purpose clearly identified, you're not going to impress people. People don't want to be sold anything. They want to be compelled. And so I don't know if this would be compelling to anyone, but when I started working in that clinic, I had come out of the environmental law field. I was saving the planet, air, birds, water, trees, bees. I was on a mission to clean up the world, the whole planet. Now, because I studied an environment, I started wondering, well, what's this environment doing to people? I saw dead birds and seals and whatever, but I'm like, well, what about people? And that's when I changed jobs, started working at the clinic to build a wellness center. And what I was just amazed, and I started taking the nutrition classes and all the other certifications that I have. So, but what really was consistent, people walking in the office had all seen 5 or 8 or 10 different practitioners already. And I eventually identified the cycle of trial and error that people go through. They're on an endless journey trying to get their problem solved, and no one's fixing it. And over 20 years ago, that pissed me off. I didn't, a lot of people come to health practice and professions because they had their own personal health problem, and then slowly they overcame it. Now they can become a hero for those with a similar problem, and that's their story. That's not my story. I was in perfect health, in great shape. I just got really angry that people had already seen. What do you mean you've seen 5 or 8 or 10 practitioners and you're not better? And you spent how much money? That's crazy. You've been ripped off. I'm going to be the last person you need to see. And that became that's my basic story. So that was driving behind everything. Keep digging, find out what are the underlying causes and conditions. The last thing they need is another diagnosis from another doctor, or just to buy some therapy, like try my therapy. No, try mine. Try colon hydrotherapy standing on your head with carrots in your nose, or just there's people just selling a bunch of stuff that might help, might not, but with no objective criteria. Remember, I came out of environmental law, which you have to study. You got to know the history and the rules. So I was a pretty good researcher, and I got fortunate and met a couple of doctors who really trusted me, and they thought I was a bit naive, but respected the ambition that I was going to solve people's problems, and I couldn't just get out a prescription pad to do it because I'm not licensed to do that. So I can recall a doctor saying, "Gee, Reed," he goes, "you're actually going to have to really help people to be successful." I said, what a concept, So anyway, so you better have that story together. And then what I did is I just worked really, really, really hard for several years, really building up a busy practice. I had thousands of clients and thousands. I was lecturing three times a month usually. I was screening with the bone density testing up to 8 times a month. For a couple hours in grocery, every Tuesday and Thursday I go up for. And so I just had tremendous exposure to the public and what they were facing. And I had solutions that were like, hey, let me run some labs. These are experimental labs. These are new labs. The saliva testing back then wasn't even considered real testing. It was considered quackery back in, 20 years ago. Now it's a common occurrence with over 300 white papers, written on how great it is, and everyone does it. But so I was fortunate to have some great mentorship, but I also made my own observations, and I'm a good organizer, and I just codified it in what we call a heuristic. A heuristic is a way of doing things that works. It's not necessarily perfectly, you can argue with certain points, but it's a heuristic that works. Looking at the hormones, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, and nervous systems. That spell's hidden. That's a way of looking at the body. That's a lot of data that you can use, identify the healing opportunities. And then to apply the general principles of health building, it took me a while to figure out what I was doing, but I knew diet wasn't enough, and just, get a good night's sleep, that's not good enough, and exercise, that's not good enough. Stress reduction is really important, but alone isn't enough. And supplements. Everyone back then in the nutrition business was really a supplement salesman. Not everybody, take that back, but a lot of people, it was just sell supplements, which is just replacing drugs with another product, and that doesn't work by itself either. So what I figured out was you need a complete, holistic, epigenetic program, a lifestyle, an environment, if you will, that has an effect on every cell, tissue, organ, and system in the body. And I called that DRESS, or Dress for Health Success. DRESS stands for diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. And that covers everything. That covers your whole epigenetic program. So, but it took a while to figure out. I listened to a lot of tapes and went to a lot of lectures, and I talked to a lot of clinical advisors at all these labs, like 1,000 times. And I had real experience in front of people, looking them in the face, as the patient educator. So a lot of feedback. You get a lot of feedback, and if you want to do some good in the world, you can. So now what I would say is I've done the homework for you. You don't have to go run thousands of labs and thousands of people and figure it out. I figured out a really good working heuristic and a protocol that helps everyone, no matter what the problem is.
There's a lot of magic I'm hearing right here. One quick speaking tip for the listeners right now. Something you just said that I picked up on. When you're talking about this is something called a compression statement. When we're looking at this, it's saying like, I over X amount of years and this many clients later, I've figured this out through a series of costly and painful mistakes. I have figured this out for you. And it just makes people say, like you said, I've done the homework for you. And, I've put a lot of effort into this so that you can get starts getting these results right away. And saying those kind of things when you're talking about what you've done and all of your experience can be very powerful and lead people in. The next piece of magic, and what you were saying, and this applies to everything and everyone these days, it becomes more and more relevant and more important, but having a purpose and a why behind what you're doing and being able to bring your story forward in that way is so essential, because and this is something that's particularly challenging in the health and wellness field, I find, but anywhere where people have a high level of expertise, they become such experts, and they want to just rely on that. And they think that if you show us like an abstract to some, medical journal or something, or tell us, how many papers, you've been published in, that is what's important to people. But we want a human connection. We want to know that this person that we're working with is not just in it for profit, but they really care about us, and they share values with us, so that we can trust and work with them. And so having that story and being able to show why you care, and bringing that in with what you do and why you do it, and making sure that people know is so very essential in this day and age where there might not be much separating you from your next competitor other than that. And finally, I love the additional things you've had in there, the hidden and duress, where you put these together in acronyms or simple 1, 2, 3 steps, so that it's easy to remember and easy to navigate. Because when people have so much knowledge flying around, if you have something that just makes it simple to make sense and to navigate that knowledge quickly, that's really where your certifications and your education can really empower and accelerate your clients' results. Not just the clients maybe that you're working with, but again, the people that you're certifying and teaching and allowing to work on your behalf.
Yeah, and that should apply to any profession. Obviously, I'm in the healing arts, if you will. Not a physician, but really we're the epitome of, I think, health coaching, which is a term that wasn't even used when I started 20 years ago, but it's become really popular. And I realized, we're kind of sitting at the top there, because we do teach all the lab work. We give access to the lab work. That's another thing about our certification. What does it get you? It's got to get you something. So with us, it's the use of our medical director program, and you can run the labs under a medical director. Remember, I had to have one at the office, and so, because that's who I worked under. So when I started teaching, I had to figure that piece of the puzzle out. So you may have, let's say you're teaching financial services, or, they have all kinds of certifications there for financial. I use a certified financial planner, so there's lots of certifications, and they have something that if you're going to train others to do it, you better have some tools that are unique to the trade that you give them access to, and these kind of things. And one last thing on certification, since that was an early question, at first it was just a certificate of completion. So if you have a small course, it's a weekend course or a 6-week course, you meet once a week or something with mentoring in between and all that, you can give a certificate of completion. That's all mine was at first. But certification means more than that, like recognized. And at first I didn't care about that. So you want the training, I'm going to teach you to do some good in the world, and I don't care who approves of it or not. But just because of the way the marketplace works, you want that to mean something. And so you get yourself, the other organizations and bodies and agencies and things will start to recognize you. Hey, your people actually know something, and actually can do some good in the world in our case. And so we've been fully accredited by the American Association of Drugless Practitioners, which is odd because that was one of the first organizations that I ever recognized that I liked, 20 years ago. They've been around a long time. They have tens of thousands of members. And so when they finally recognized my course as fully accredited, when you are finished with the FDN course, we get our certification. You get their certification as a holistic health practitioner. That doesn't come overnight. So as you're starting a certification course, it's a certificate of completion until you start to get recognized by other bodies and organizations. And you want to work at that. And if they have a fee for them to look at you, pay it. I've had people charge me hundreds of dollars to look at even just parts of our course for continuing education credits, professional development credits. So we're now recognized for those kind of things too. And you can too.
So that is a good insight into kind of the process from having your certification just kind of being your own thing and slowly starting to build reputation. And another thing that I wanted to ask you that I've observed in your community and is part of growing something beyond yourself like you have, is you not only build a community of people who have taken your program and grown with it, but you need to build a team of people that can help and support you to grow beyond just teaching yourself and certifying people yourself. You mentioned already some people just came out of the coursework and said, hey, I love this. I'm a technician. I'd love to build this for you. Can you share some of your lessons that you've learned putting together a team that has helped support you in this?
I could share a lot of lessons. a lot of them you get the hard way. They say that it's better to learn from someone else's mistakes than your own. So I've had good mentorship. I've paid a ton of money for consultants and people. Some weren't worth the crap, and some were just amazing that I still talk to today, all these years later. So organizational there's 3 areas where your business will break down. If it does, one will be an organizational structure. if you're by yourself, and I would hire a really good office manager, someone to handle the administration, the appointments, the money. Like you basically as a practitioner are going to be doing the production work. You're going to be the one seeing the patients, or providing the service, or building the product, or whatever it is. You're going to have someone else who does all the admin, sales, marketing, and the other kind of things. So you basically have your promotions and you have your production. If you just start with that, okay, promotions, production, promotion, production. Not everyone's good at both. I happen to be able to go out and sell and lecture and talk to people and do the production. So you're going to have to think about things, organizational structure. The other thing is that will hold you back if you don't set goals for monthly and 90-day and yearly goals. I work now on 3 and 5 year planning. I even have one of my consultants says, "What's your 20-year plan?" I go, "In 20 years, man, I might not even be around." But so you have to do, number one, organizational structure. Number 2 is goal setting. Number 3 is planning. Now those aren't the average skills of a doctor, let's say, or if you're an expert in something, but you better associate yourselves with someone who can help you with your organizational structure, and then set your goals and plan. Because it's not just what do I have to do today? You do have to get it done today, something, but you better have your structure, your goals, and your plans in place. I don't know if that's helpful, if that's what you're asking for.
It does make a lot of sense. And kind of how I would distill that down is you need to know yourself enough to know where your weaknesses are. And I had a really big insight just last year, where through a coaching process, I discovered, though I'm good at managing and kind of the admin process of making sure, all the projects are accounted for, all the boxes are checked and things like that. I'm good at it, but it really drains my energy. And it was where I noticed a lot of mistakes were happening. And as soon as I brought somebody on to help me with that aspect of my business, it freed me up, because I like you, really enjoy engaging with people. I enjoy working with my clients and helping them prepare great presentations, but also presenting and going out there and marketing and creating sales. And I at first, and I think a lot of people have this, there's this doubt or this uncertainty that bringing somebody on is going to slow you down, or maybe convolute things. But it sets you free in so many ways. Or you may feel that you can't afford, or can't afford to bring somebody on at this time, but as soon as you do bring somebody on, and it opens up so many new doors to do things. And I brought on a great project manager last year, a great technician that has helped with a lot of the website stuff, also stuff that I was pretty good at managing, but as soon as I freed myself from that, I was able to do so much more higher level, higher value things that were energizing and inspiring for me. And I see that in the same way in what you're describing. And so you've got to know yourself, know where you're brilliant, and be able to allow yourself to hand off and let go of those other things. And definitely don't just let go of them and ignore them, because that's definitely risky, but handing it off to somebody that you can trust.
And training them. Don't just assume anything that they know. So as a business owner, and maybe the president, let's say, you really end up just where you're setting policy all the time. People don't know how to handle something. Like, we got a customer's really mad because of this or that. What's the policy? My staff now, and I have about 19 people, they just, what's the policy? And they now know. Just if there's a policy in place, they can execute it. If there's no policy, let's make one up. Then you do a lot of that sort of stuff. But again, typically people start with a good product. They're making something and it's got great value, and they're out there kind of pushing it themselves, and they start making money. And once money comes in, you got to be a good money manager. You have to know where to squirrel it away here and there and here and there. You have your little buckets. You don't just spend it all. That way you're going to have money when you do need to invest it. And the other mistake I see, or there's something to watch out for, is let's say you got money rolling in, you have you're building your staff, you've got a really good, solid office manager. You got to have someone, I call it, who wears their hair in a tight bun, like someone that knows how to get things done and get people to do stuff. And including you, like doesn't mind getting in the boss's face either. You need one of those. And then you can peel off as you grow. Now, what'll happen is you'll get profitable, and you got money coming in, and you're the owner, so you're taking the lion's share, whatever. But you're paying people really well. You got to pay people well, and you'll get scared to grow. You'll get and what happens as soon as you do that is you start to contract. So sometimes periodically, you're going to have to go, okay, we don't really have all the money coming in that we want, but we're going to hire 2 more people here and 2 more people here. It could be part-time, whatever. And then you're going to grow into that. So what you'll see is that if you have a positive and, the cup is half full, abundance mentality, you're going to go ahead and hire that person, even though you're not sure, because that'll help you to grow. You will expand into that if you orientate them properly and train them to do their job really well, and set policy that they understand. It's very clear that they can sort of perpetuate.
Very good. Reed, we've explored a ton of different areas, but we've gotten a really good grasp on kind of how a certification program can be created and scaled to something from a small weekend workshop to something that's impacted over 10,000 people and probably 10,000 practitioners that have impacted, no doubt, hundreds of thousands of people. So it's been a huge thing in the world, and I feel you've absolutely at least begun to achieve that purpose that you set out to, and I want to commend you for that. Do you have any closing thoughts for us, and where can we go to learn more about your program?
Well, the program is Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, and you can go to that URL, functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com. That'll explain the training program. There's so much more to it, but there's enough there for people to get to know us. And but the other thing is, it started with one purpose in mind: to help as many people as possible get well and stay well naturally, so they could in turn teach others. So, and that was mission 20 years ago. I figured that out, and it hasn't changed. It's never changed. Again, the reason I do it was what I said. I was upset that people are stuck on this cycle of trial and error, but the mission became to help as many as possible get well, get off their drugs if they can, and so on and so on. So I would just say, stay true to your mission and never ever give up. Just get good guidance, get some help, and keep yourself balanced, and on and on and on.
Oh, but that's a great way. That's really good. And you've brought a ton of story into this. I think you've served the mission of this podcast really well. So thanks again, Reed, for joining us.
Thank you, Kyle. My real pleasure. Anytime you want to chat, I'm happy to chat.